You ever walk into a room and immediately know something's off? Like the universe is whispering in your ear. Brace yourself, buddy. This one's gonna hurt. That was me last Thursday night. My name's Logan. I'm 38, a financial analyst with a strict diet of black coffee, spreadsheets, and disappointment. That night, I was supposed to meet my wife Ashley for a serious talk over dinner. Her words, not mine. I dressed for the occasion, button-down shirt, clean shave, even wore the watch she gave me on our 3rd anniversary. Call me sentimental or just stupidly hopeful. I thought we were patching things up, reigniting the spark. Instead, I got a front row seat to my own humiliation. She was already there when I arrived. Not alone. Sitting across the table was Chase Donovan, her colleague. That's what she'd always called him, even though he looked more like a romance novel cover model than an accountant. Black shirt, smug smile, biceps trying to burst out of his sleeves. The kind of guy who says bro at weddings and thinks cigars make him deep. Ashley smiled like nothing was wrong. Logan, this is Chase. You've heard me mention him. Heard of him? I'd had nightmares starring the guy. I sat down. My palms were already sweating. Chase leaned in, voice smooth like oil on ice. Let's make this simple, he said, eyes locking with mine. You've got 2 options. Leave quietly, or face me like a man. Ashley didn't flinch, didn't even blink, just smiled. I looked from her to him. My mind went quiet. Then I chuckled, one of those low, disbelieving laughs you let out when you realize you've been the punchline in a joke you didn't know was being told. I'm sorry, I said. Did you just give me an ultimatum in a restaurant over my wife? Chase smirked. Ashley sipped her wine. I stood up, leaned across the table, and said calmly, You want me gone? Fine. But you'll both remember this moment. Not because I walked away, but because I did it with my dignity intact. Then I left. No plate throwing. No shouting. Just the sound of my shoes tapping out the final notes of a marriage that had clearly ended long before that dinner reservation. I drove home with the windows down, the wind screaming louder than my thoughts. I didn't cry. Not my style. But something inside me felt rearranged. Like someone had opened me up and shuffled all the furniture around. When I walked through the door, the house felt colder. Not temperature-wise, just off. The way a hotel room feels after checkout. Ashley's perfume still lingered in the hallway, but now it smelled like someone else's mistake. Our bedroom was pristine. Too pristine. She never made the bed like that. Tight corners, tucked-in sheets, pillows fluffed. It felt staged, like someone wanted to erase the mess. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the framed photo on the nightstand. Us in Cabo, smiling at something I no longer remembered. She looked happy in that picture. I looked convinced. The quiet buzz of rage turned to curiosity. I stood up, opened her vanity drawer. Nothing seemed out of place. But then, tucked behind an old makeup bag, I found a hotel receipt. Hilton, downtown. Last weekend. She told me she was visiting her cousin in Sacramento. The receipt said otherwise. Room 907. 1 king bed. 2 breakfasts. I should have stopped there. I should have taken that 1 brick of truth and walked away. But no. I needed the whole blueprint of betrayal. Her tablet was on the nightstand. Unlocked. Because Ashley believed in her own cleverness a little too much. I opened the gallery. My gut did a backflip. Photos. Her. Chase. In a mirror. In a hotel robe. Then without it. I didn't need more. But there was more. Messages. You make me feel alive again. Voice notes. His deep tone. Tell your husband the truth. Or I will. Her giggle in response. He still thinks we're just going through a rough patch. Poor baby. Poor baby. That's what she called me. I closed the tablet, set it down gently, and walked to the kitchen. Made myself a drink. Bourbon. 2 fingers, no ice. I stared at the wall and sipped slowly. That's when I realized something. She didn't just cheat on me. She planned it. The next morning felt like a hangover, but not from the bourbon. It was the emotional kind. The kind where your brain keeps replaying moments with new subtitles. That work trip she canceled last minute? Probably a rendezvous. That perfume she claimed was a gift from a coworker? Probably Chase's pick. Every sweet smile now looked like a smirk in hindsight. I didn't call her. Didn't text. What was there to say? Hope you and your gym ad boyfriend are enjoying my memory foam mattress. No. I needed something else. Clarity. And clarity wears a bitter suit. I got dressed. Not for work. For war. I went to see Craig, my lawyer. Been golfing with him for years, but never thought I'd sit in his office talking about divorce. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Logan, I'll be honest. If you've got proof, and it sounds like you do, this won't be pretty for her. But it'll be clean for you. I showed him the receipts, the photos, the messages. He nodded slowly. This is surgical. You've already done half my job. I didn't smile. I didn't even flinch. I want the house. I want the car. And I want her to understand that when you burn down someone's life, they don't just walk away. They build something better with the ashes. Craig whistled low. You always were a quiet type, Logan. But damn, you're not pulling punches today. I'm not swinging yet, I said. I'm just measuring the reach. 3 days passed without a word from Ashley. No texts, no calls, not even a pathetic attempt at damage control. Silence. I used to think silence was peaceful, now I knew it was tactical. She was waiting, watching, probably figuring out how to spin the narrative, turn herself into the victim in someone else's ears. The only problem? I wasn't playing the fool anymore. I didn't sit around stewing. I moved. First thing I did was call the bank and separate our accounts. Then I changed the locks. Not out of spite, out of precedent. You set fire to my life? You don't get to keep a key. Next stop, human resources. I walked into the building like a man returning from the dead. Cassandra at the front desk blinked twice when she saw me. Logan? We thought you were on leave. Just need to talk to James, I said, offering the kind of half-smile that used to disarm boardrooms. She handed me a visitor pass. No questions asked. James was my boss. Good guy. Bit too into fantasy football, but he had a sense of justice that most execs lacked. Logan, he said, standing when I entered. Heard about things. Ah, yes, things. The corporate umbrella for public disasters. I shut the door behind me. Listen, you know I'm not one for drama, so I'll make this quick. I'm divorcing Ashley. He nodded, slow and deliberate. I figured. The office gossip mill has been working overtime. Good. Let them talk. I just need a couple favors. He raised an eyebrow. Like what? First, I need time. A week. No questions. Just a clean schedule and the assurance that HR won't bug me about paperwork. Done. What else? I need to know if Chase Donovan's ever had complaints filed against him. Harassment, misconduct, anything HR-worthy. James leaned back. Careful, Logan. You're treading close to some murky ethics here. I met his eyes. I'm not asking you to leak files. Just a heads up. The guy who wrecked my marriage might also be dirty in other ways. He tapped his fingers on the desk for a moment. Unofficially, yes. 2 complaints in the last year. Nothing stuck, but enough to raise eyebrows. That was all I needed. Thanks, I said, standing. Logan. Yeah. James gave me a look, the kind that said, do what you have to, just don't become someone you'll hate in the process. I'm not planning revenge, I said quietly. Just closure. On my terms. That night, I attended the company gala. Ashley always said it was her favorite night of the year. Open bar, elegant dresses, soft jazz, like something out of a bad rom-com. She'd been planning this one for weeks. I wasn't invited this year, of course, but they didn't revoke my badge. I walked into the ballroom like I belonged there, because once I did. Ashley was by the bar in a navy blue gown that looked like it cost more than our last vacation. She laughed too loudly at something Chase said, her hand brushing his shoulder like a reflex. Classic. They didn't see me at first. I didn't make a scene. I walked over to HR manager Linda, who was nursing a martini like it owed her money. Hey, Linda. Heard Chase's HR file is heavier than mine. She nearly choked. Logan. What? How'd you know about that? I asked the right questions. She smirked. Always did. You here to raise hell? Nope. Just here to let a few people see what rock bottom looks like in a tux. Then I walked straight to Ashley. She saw me. Her face went pale, then hard. Logan, she said through gritted teeth. Just wanted to say hi, I replied calmly. You look like a decision you'll regret later. Chase stepped forward, posture puffed. What are you doing here, man? I looked him dead in the eye. Just needed to see the man who risked his career for a few lousy nights with a married woman. A hush was building. People were turning. Ashley hissed, don't make a scene. Oh, Ashley, I said, leaning in. This isn't the scene. This is the trailer. I pulled a manila envelope from inside my jacket. Not a dramatic flourish, just a small motion, deliberate. I handed it to her. What is this? She asked. Your signed confession, I said. Well, texts, screenshots, photos. Proof of infidelity. Grounds for divorce. Evidence of violating the company's ethics policy. Chase blanched. I turned to him. You might want to get a lawyer. You'll be hearing from mine soon. Then I turned, took a glass of champagne from a passing tray, and walked away. No shouting. No slapping. No tears. Just silence. Thick, choking silence behind me. Because for once, they weren't the center of attention. I was. And the crowd wasn't laughing with them anymore. After the gala, things got quiet, but it wasn't the peaceful kind. It was that strange hush that falls over a town before a tornado. Everything looks fine on the surface, but you can feel the pressure shift in your bones. Ashley didn't call, didn't text, but I knew she'd seen what was in the envelope. I printed everything, cataloged the evidence like I was building a case file for a true crime podcast. Part of me hated that I had to do it, but a bigger part of me was proud that I hadn't let her rewrite the story. That weekend, I moved into a rental house across town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms, leaky faucet, hardwood floors that creaked like they were whispering secrets. But it was mine, untouched by betrayal. My buddy Nate helped me move in. He didn't say much, just handed me a beer once the last box was inside and sat on the porch with me in silence. After a while, he said, "You gonna torch the whole thing? Or just let the lawyers do the slow burn?" I looked at him. "You ever see a house infested with termites?" He blinked. "Yeah. The wood looks fine from the outside, but inside? It's hollow. That was my marriage. Termites had been chewing for years. I just didn't notice." Nate nodded. "Well, now you got the match." I sipped my beer. Not sure if I want to light it. Yet. Because here's the thing. When you're betrayed, there's a point where you don't want revenge, you want meaning. You want to know why. You want the villain to look you in the eye and admit it. So I waited. And wouldn't you know it, Monday morning came with a knock on my new front door. Ashley. She stood there in a trench coat, sunglasses, holding a white envelope like it was radioactive. Her makeup was perfect, but her posture was cracked. A woman used to being in control who just realized her hands are empty. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside. She walked in like she was bracing for a fight, but the house disarmed her. No photos of us. No reminders. Just furniture that didn't know her name. "You're not going to ask how I found this place," she said, sitting stiffly on the couch. "You still stock my calendar?" She blinked. "Yes." I sat across from her. "Then let's not pretend you're here for closure. You're here because things didn't go the way you planned." She set the envelope on the coffee table. "I had my lawyer look over everything," she said. "You've got enough to ruin me." I didn't respond. I wanted to see where she was taking this. She folded her hands. "I want to avoid court. Keep it clean. Quiet. I'll sign the divorce papers. Just no scorched earth, okay?" And there it was. The ask. Ashley, Queen of Spin, was here not for apology, but for damage control. Because Chase had been suspended from work pending investigation. Because HR wasn't as blind as she hoped. Because suddenly the walls were closing in and I wasn't the one cornered anymore. "You should have thought about quiet," I said evenly, "before you broadcasted your affair in a public restaurant." She flinched. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "No," I said. "You made a series of calculated choices. The only thing you regret is getting caught." She looked down at her hands. "I didn't think you'd find out." There it was. Not remorse. Not heartbreak. Just strategy gone wrong. "I loved you once," I said. "Deeply. Honestly. I built a future around that love. But you lit it up like a bonfire and danced around it with someone else." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't flinch. "You don't get to cry here," I added. "Not in my clean house." She wiped her eyes, composed herself, and slid the envelope closer. "Sign the papers." "I'll walk away," she said. "But I need one thing." I laughed. "You're still negotiating?" "I need my parents to never find out. I want the story to be we drifted apart. Irreconcilable differences. Not cheating. They won't forgive me if they know." I studied her. "You destroyed our marriage, but you want me to protect your reputation?" She looked at me like she was begging for a favor she hadn't earned. I stood. "You'll get the divorce," I said. "You'll get the silence for now. But if you ever twist the story to make me the villain, I promise you, I'll pull the curtain back and let everyone see who is holding the dagger." Her face fell. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's a boundary. Something you were never good at respecting." She left without another word. I watched her drive away and felt nothing. No victory. No sorrow. Just clarity. She came to protect her image. But I was done protecting her from the truth. The thing they don't tell you about divorces, especially messy ones, is that they never happen clean. No matter how many papers you sign or how calmly the split is arranged, the emotional residue doesn't wipe off with a lawyer's letterhead. It clings to your skin. It shows up in unexpected places. Like when you open your sock drawer and find the pair she always borrowed. Or when you smell her shampoo on a hoodie you didn't even know she wore. Or when you start the car and the Bluetooth still connects to her phone. That Monday evening, after Ashley left my new place with her fake tears and her carefully negotiated shame, I decided to clean house for real. Tossed out old bedsheets, bagged up everything that carried even a whiff of shared history. I wasn't mad while I did it, just surgical. Like a surgeon removing a tumor without letting it poison the rest of the body. Around midnight, I was down to the last drawer in the hallway closet when I found it, her old journal. Leather-bound, scuffed corners, elastic band stretched loose. It must have ended up in a box of mine by mistake. I told myself I shouldn't read it. I told myself it wasn't my place. Then I opened it anyway. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. Just a few lines. I think I love Logan, but I miss the version of him that smiled more. I hate that I'm bored. I hate that I know Chase would make me feel something, even if it's wrong. I kept reading. The entries weren't just about Chase. They were about me. About our dinners. My long hours. My habits. My silences. My clothes. My laugh. She dissected me like a science project. Logan doesn't get angry. He just disappears into himself. It makes me feel invisible. Funny. She thought I disappeared? She was the one slipping out at night, whispering into someone else's phone while I folded laundry in the next room. I closed the journal, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. I didn't cry. Haven't cried through any of this. But there was a pressure in my chest like something wanted to break through. Not sadness. Something older. Colder. The next day, Craig, my lawyer, called. She signed the papers, he said. Everything's moving quickly. Uncontested. We should be done within the month. Good, I said. There was a pause. Logan, there's something else, Craig said. You remember the clause we slipped into the settlement? The one about workplace disclosure. Yeah. Well, Chase's suspension? It became termination. HR went through his messages after your file landed on their desk. Turns out you weren't the first complaint. Just the most thorough. I nodded. He'll land on his feet. Craig chuckled darkly. Maybe, but not in this town. He hung up. I sat with that for a moment. I hadn't lifted a hand. I hadn't screamed or shattered anything. But the pieces had started to fall anyway. Ashley tried to text me that night. A short message. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just wanted to feel alive again. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the reply box. Then I deleted the message. No response is a response. Weeks passed. The papers came through. Finalized. Stamped. Official. A mutual friend texted me that Ashley had moved in with her sister temporarily. Word around the grapevine was she and Chase weren't speaking anymore. Apparently, their workplace fallout was a little too real for romance. But I didn't gloat. Because this wasn't a victory. It was a transition. And the truth was, I was doing fine. Better than fine. I was learning how to be alone without feeling lonely. There's a difference. I started jogging in the mornings, cooking my own meals, reading books that didn't start with how to. People said I seemed lighter. Freer. I wasn't sure if that was true yet. But I was working on it. Then, one afternoon, Nate showed up again. Same porch. Different vibe. You hear about Paul? He asked. Paul? I said, confused. Yeah, your old buddy. One of the cheering section at the club. I remembered Paul. Vaguely. Another smug face in the betrayal highlight reel. Well, Nate continued. He's been asking around about you. Says you embarrassed him. Wants to have a talk. I leaned back. Is that so? Yep. Said you humiliated a mutual friend group and made people pick sides. I laughed. The bitter kind. Tell Paul, I said, that if he wants to talk, he knows where I live. But he better come with more than cheap wine and a sob story. Want me to handle it? Nate asked. I shook my head. No. Let it simmer. Some people need to hear the echo of their own cowardice for a while. He nodded, then cracked a beer. You know, he said, this whole thing. It's changing you. Good or bad? Both, he said. You're still you, but now you see the cracks in the glass before it breaks. I looked out at the sunset. It was quiet again. This time, it felt earned. You ever get that itch at the back of your neck? The kind that tells you something's about to shift? I got it the moment I opened the door and saw her standing there again, Ashley. Same trench coat, different expression. Not smug, not sorrowful. Just empty. She didn't say hi. Didn't ask to come in. She just stood on the porch like a ghost who couldn't find her way home. You forget something? I asked, keeping my tone flat. She swallowed. I need to talk to you. Please. I didn't move. I'm not here to beg, she added quickly. I just need to give you something. Is it contagious? She flinched, but I saw the corner of her mouth twitch. A ghost of the smile she used to give me when I hit her with a dry one-liner. I deserve that, she said. All of it. Still, I didn't open the door wider. I didn't invite her in. So she handed me a small envelope. Not legal-sized. Not thick. Just white. Just simple. What's this? Closure, she said. I opened it on the porch. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Ink slightly smudged at the bottom like her hand had hesitated more than once. I read the first line and looked up. You're pregnant? I asked flatly. Her eyes shimmered, but she didn't cry. Yes. I folded the letter once. Let me guess. Chase. She shook her head. It's yours. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because life had clearly decided to write a soap opera and cast me in it without warning. Timing makes sense, she said. It was before the gala. Before everything. I stared at her. And then I stepped back inside and shut the door. Didn't slam it. Didn't yell. Just closed it. Quietly. Like I was turning a page. She didn't knock again. She didn't call. She just stood out there for a minute before walking away. I stood behind the door for a while, heart thudding like a warning drum. This wasn't a twist. This was a trap. Emotional or otherwise. Pregnant. And it might be mine. The next morning, I took the letter to Craig. I laid it on his desk without saying a word. He skimmed it once, then whistled. Tell me this is a prank. Nope. He tapped the paper. You want to confirm it? I nodded. There's ways, he said. Private testing. Discreet. Can it be done before birth? He nodded. Cell-free fetal DNA. Expensive, but accurate. I leaned back. Set it up. The test results came 2 weeks later. Positive match. 99.9%. Ashley hadn't lied. Well, about that part, anyway. So now I was officially a divorced man expecting a child with the woman who detonated our marriage like it was a 4th of July grand finale. Let me tell you, there's no chapter in the divorce playbook that prepares you for that. I didn't call her right away. I didn't even know what to say. I just sat in the dark with the results on the table, trying to decide if this was a second chance or a delayed punishment. It was Nate who finally said what I couldn't. You don't have to forgive her to be a father. That hit hard. Because somewhere in all this mess, a life was forming. A real one. Tiny. Innocent. A casualty of 2 adults who'd both lost their way, just in different directions. So I called her. She picked up on the first ring. Hello. It's mine, I said. She didn't respond. Not with words. Just a shaky breath. I'll be involved, I added. I'll support the baby. I'll show up. But this doesn't mean anything between us. I understand, she whispered. You don't get a fresh start, Ashley. But the kid does. So don't drag your guilt into their world. Let's raise them without the mess. More silence. Then, finally, a choked, thank you. I ended the call. Weeks turned into months. We worked out schedules. Doctor visits. Paperwork. She moved back in with her sister, closer to the hospital. Chase was long gone. Word had it he skipped town after being blackballed from every job within 3 counties. The old friend group? Shattered. Paul tried to reconnect. I ignored him. Turns out when you flip the lights on, cockroaches scatter. But something funny happened in all that stillness. I found purpose. Not in Ashley. Not in revenge. But in preparing for a future that wasn't just about me. I bought a crib. Painted a room. Started reading parenting books that didn't sound like they were written by bored psychologists. I even started smiling again. Not all the time, but enough that people noticed. Nate, over beers one night, grinned at me. You're doing it, he said. Doing what? Building something new. You're not just surviving anymore, man. You're living. I raised my glass. Here's to burning it all down. He raised his too, and planting something better in the ashes. The baby came in late spring. A girl. 8 pounds, lungs like a fire alarm, hair like mine, eyes like Ashley's. We named her Nora. She didn't cry when she was placed in my arms, just stared. I stared back, unsure if my heart was breaking or rebuilding itself on the spot. Maybe both. Ashley and I didn't speak much during the delivery. We didn't need to. Some silences are full of things too dense for words, guilt, awe, history. And now, a baby. I took a month off work. Set up a nursery in the spare bedroom. Rocking chair, tiny bookshelf, stuffed bear that looked vaguely judgmental. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. A version of me who hadn't been betrayed. A version who didn't flinch every time the phone buzzed. But Nora cried, and I held her, and she slept in my arms. And somehow, the wounds stopped bleeding. Not healing, just stopped bleeding. Ashley came by often, respectful, tentative. She didn't overstay. We were parenting like business partners. Efficient, cordial, not friends. And honestly, that worked. Until the night I caught her crying in the nursery. Nora had just fallen asleep. Ashley stood by the crib, arms crossed tightly. Her shoulders trembled. "You okay?" I asked from the hallway. She nodded, wiping her face. "Yeah," she whispered. I see you with her. And I wonder how I messed all of it up." I didn't say anything. Because what could I say? She did mess it up. But admitting that doesn't erase a child. Doesn't erase 12 years of history. It just sits there, in the space between us. Like a wound with its own personality. We left it there, in the quiet. And walked away. By Nora's first birthday, Ashley had started dating someone new. I met him once. His name was Derek. Looked like a substitute teacher with a side hustle in beard oil reviews. Harmless guy. I didn't hate him. That surprised me. Maybe because I'd changed. I'd found peace in solitude. Even started seeing someone. Michelle, a barista turned graphic designer who wore combat boots to brunch and told me early on, "I don't believe in fairy tales, but I believe in honesty." She was the anti-Ashley in the best way. Direct. No games. No pretending. And the best part? She liked Nora. Genuinely. Nora took to her like sunshine to a window pane. I kept things slow. Deliberate. But one night, Michelle and I were watching Nora stack blocks, and she looked at me and said, "You're not angry anymore." "I'm tired of being angry," I said. She smiled. "Good. Because you deserve more than being the guy who survived a car crash. You deserve to drive again." And just like that, something shifted. Not dramatically. Just a gear clicking into place. Ashley and I still texted occasionally. Mostly about Nora. Sometimes about logistics. But the tone had changed. Lighter. Less raw. She never asked for forgiveness. Not in so many words. But she gave me space, and she showed up for Nora, and she didn't try to rewrite the past. And in some ways, that was the apology. By the time Nora was walking, I didn't see Ashley as a villain anymore. Just a cautionary tale. And me? I was finally free of the stories she wrote without my permission. It happened in the middle of a thunderstorm. Michelle and I were on the couch. Nora asleep. Wind howling like a warning. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The message read, "You might want to check your backyard." I stood, confused, pulled open the curtain, and saw flames. A fire. Small, but spreading. The wooden fence at the back of the property. Lit like it had been doused. I grabbed the extinguisher, ran out into the rain, shouting for Michelle to call 911. We got it out. Firefighters said it was arson. Likely local. Accelerant used. That night, I watched the security footage. A hooded figure. Broad shoulders. Walked like he thought the world owed him something. I recognized the gait. Paul. Ashley's old cheerleader. Apparently, he hadn't appreciated being cut off. Being called out. He'd left town after a few threats didn't land. Now he was back, with matches. The police arrested him 3 days later. He confessed. Said I deserved a wake-up call. But I was already wide awake. I visited him once. In holding. Just for 5 minutes. He looked at me through the glass, smirked. "You think you won?" he asked. I leaned in. "You think this was revenge?" I asked. "Paul, this wasn't even a speed bump." His smile faded. Because I meant it. I'd already burned. Already bled. Already rebuilt. This wasn't revenge. This was a footnote. As I walked out, I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Peace. Real peace. Not the kind you beg for. The kind you earn.